Hi, I'm Landon Ray, and this is Modern Entrepreneur. Today we have Marsha Bailey, who is the president, CEO, and founder of Women's Economic Ventures, with over 25 years of experience in women's business development and microlending. Under her leadership, Weave has become nationally recognized for its high-impact programs. In conjunction with her work with Weave, Bailey has mentored emerging women leaders in the US, Nepal, and Jordan, provided entrepreneurial training for women in Hungary, and provided organizational development assistance to organizations in the US, Oman, and in Amman, Jordan. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
This is a Santa Barbara business.
Yes.
This organization
Nonprofit.
was founded here, and it's most of its programs happen here.
So we serve Santa Barbara and Ventura counties. So countywide, we have 3 offices.
Yeah, and so this is for those of you who don't know, Ontraport is based in Santa Barbara, and Women's Economic Ventures is a significant force in the local community here. You were just saying that thousands of women have been through your programs over the years.
Yes.
Describe again what they are.
Yeah, so we've helped start or expand over 4,000 businesses. I think it's actually over 5,000 have been through our core training program. It's over 15,000 in all the programs altogether. In terms of our microloans, which really provide that funding before a business is bankable, we've made over $4 million in loans to local entrepreneurs.
So the impact that you guys have is big. I personally know a whole bunch of people that have been through your programs and who have started businesses because of the, felt like they could start businesses because of the education they got there. But I'm kind of curious in this interview to hear about your personal journey growing this organization, because you've been at it longer than many of the people have been, in business. Some of them longer than they've been alive.
Before we called it entrepreneurship, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. So, so just starting with, thinking about your whole career arc. You said you've been serving these programs for almost 26 years, but you said it was even another 5 years before that you were kind of trying to figure it out. If you could go back and give yourself a tip to 30 years ago that would have made this process easier, what would it be?
My number one thing would be to ask for help. Even though Weave is a nonprofit, it's still a very entrepreneurial kind of business. We're incorporated as a nonprofit. And I think it's a flaw that a lot of us who are entrepreneurial have, is that we are so vested, in our ideas, we tend to think we have all the answers.
Yeah.
And so it took me a long time to ask people for help and to accept help. Part of that is acknowledging that you don't have all the answers, and people, by virtue of their own experience, can add a lot of capacity to your organization. We never would have grown as big as we are if I hadn't learned to do that. Yeah,
and what area in particular would it have been helpful to get advice in for you?
I think a lot of it probably in strategic areas. I tend to be just kind of by nature both a problem solver, which means I'm a good tactical thinker, but also very much a strategic thinker. And I think anybody who's a CEO of an organization, you always have to, especially a small organization, you always have to balance what are the day-to-day requirements of managing and growing this business, but you've also got to be thinking ahead. So you've got to really give yourself time to learn new things, read about things, know what the trends are in your industry, and be looking ahead. So one of my favorite quotes, one of my staff members said, the thing we hate to hear you say most is, I've been thinking. It kind of struck fear into their hearts because it meant I had a new idea for a program. And so it's this balance you have to achieve of listening to your employees in terms of what their capacity is, but also pushing them. So it's kind of this push-pull juggling thing. So I think there were definitely times, both on the management side and the leadership side, where I could have really benefited from some wise counsel. I know I consider myself a better leader than a manager, and some people don't know the difference. So I'm kind of big on vision, but not great about building systems and things like that. So I think I could have really benefited from just some help there. You know, I always assumed that people want to be managed the way I wanted to be managed, which was not.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to be managed. That's why I lead an organization rather than work for somebody else. But people have very different styles in the way they want to be managed. Some want you to be very specific about, you know, what your expectations are, and others, you know, are like me.
Yeah,
they
like
want to
get out of
be
the way.
able to, yeah, exactly, totally, get out of their way, you know, push down the decision making, and, you know, empower leadership all throughout your organization. So, you know, that's really my style of leadership. But one of the hardest things is really recognizing, I think, what are the skill sets and that your staff has, and how to best really cultivate and grow those skills.
Yeah. Sounded like you had a pretty clear memory of your history, which is that you struggled along for 5 years trying to figure it out, and then something happened 26 years ago. What was that? What was the shift that happened that caused this thing to work all of a sudden?
So it was about a 3-year period of time. We grew out of an existing organization. So we basically, that kind of 3-year period, we were looking at how to narrow the focus of that existing organization that really wanted to be kind of all things to all women. And, you know, anybody in business knows you can't do that. Everybody is not your market. So
Right.
we had to really focus on what it is that we could accomplish. And so we had to really set some priorities around that. And we decided to focus in on economic development for women because we thought it would solve a lot of other problems, right? If you have more money, you can go out and solve a lot of your problems on your own. So we actually wrote kind of a skeletal business plan, as much as I understood a business plan, you know, at the time, and had looked at some different models for economic development. And submitted a planning grant to the James Irvine Foundation, and actually got a small grant to pursue one of our ideas, which was a business incubator, because at the time we owned a big, kind of a white elephant of a building. So at the end of this planning grant, which was basically a feasibility study, the foundation really was not that crazy about the idea, because they really wanted us to focus only on low-income women. And we felt that we needed, that women all across the continuum needed support. And also the fact that the kind of community we're in, we're not in a high, you know, density area like Los Angeles or San Francisco, that to be viable as an organization, we needed to be able to serve, you know, a broader group of women.
Sure.
We couldn't, it wasn't going to really make sense. And so I think that planning grant was probably the impetus that really got us going down that road. But when we didn't get continuation funding, we actually kind of turned a corner. I'd become aware from a conference I'd gone to about the whole kind of microfinance Grameen Bank model. And we thought, you know what, that seems like a much more flexible model, and a way that we can achieve more scale than by having a physical incubator where you're you know, limited by how many square feet you have. And so we ended up actually selling that building and got a small grant from a local foundation and just kind of launched. And we launched as a microlender following the Grameen Bank model, and then very quickly adjusted our program just as we went along, as we learned.
Right.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So you got some longevity now. Not too many people can say they've run an organization for 25, 30 years.
Sure.
What do you feel like your kind of unique skill sets are that have supported you in being successful at that?
You know, I don't know if it's a skill set or if it's just kind of a personality trait that I have, and that is that I just love to learn new things. And so, you know, for any entrepreneur, you know, lifelong learning has to be something that you want to do.
Yeah.
And that's what's kept it interesting for me, because as you can imagine, starting out, it was me and a half-time person.
Yeah.
And so I'm the kind of person, I mean, this is a skill set, is that I can do a lot of different things. You know, I did everything from write our copy to do the graphic design back in the days when you had to wax, you know, go get your typeset and wax it and, you know, put it on a board and get a photo, you know, back in the dark age. So I could do a lot of things well, which really, you know, held me in good stead, you know, in the beginning.
Yeah.
Probably the hardest thing for me to learn was to delegate. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, it's easy to delegate things you don't like to do,
Yeah.
that you don't do so well.
Right.
It's hard to delegate the things that you love and that you do well.
And that you think are important.
And that, yeah, exactly, that you think are important. So it's, you know, I'm a good writer, and I'm very picky about what goes out.
Yeah.
You know, I love language, and I want it to be perfect.
Yeah.
It's like if I discover a typo on something, it drives me crazy.
Yeah.
So, you know, letting go of things, that was definitely challenging. But as the organization grows, you know, has grown over the years, so we started from, you know, me, one and a half-time person. You know, we now have 18 full-time people, and we have about a dozen part-time contractors who work for us as teachers and consultants. The needs of the organization change, and so that kind of learning those new skills and adapting to those are, you know, that's one part of what has kept me, you know, really interested and passionate about what I do. Yeah. But the other part has just been our mission, and our mission is to create a just and equitable society through the economic empowerment of women. And, you know, we're not there yet. Yeah. We've made a lot of strides, but we're not there yet. And that organizational mission is my personal mission. And so for me, it's, you know, it's a life's work. And so I still love getting up every day and doing it.
Yeah. And what are you learning these days? What's next for you?
So what's next for me is really succession planning.
Oh, interesting.
So, you know, I mean, as I remind myself, and my board, you know, reminds me, I'm not going to be in this role forever.
Right.
And so having been somebody who has done, you know, everything, and so I have this incredible amount of organizational history in my head, and and a lot of people know the organization through me, and so I'm very highly identified with the organization. Yeah. And so what I really have to learn to do is make sure that I have built a structure and a strong staff that can, after I leave, take us to whatever that next level is. And, you know, hopefully I can do it with existing staff, but we may not, and have to, you know, look for people outside the organization as well. So that really, that transition and succession planning, I've never done that before.
Right, so that's going to be totally new. Yeah, trying to get people to make decisions the way you would make them is a high-level problem. Trying to figure out how to...
And you really can't, you know, I mean, people keep saying to me, well, you can stay on the board after you leave, and I go, no, I can't. You know, it's like once you bring in a new leader, the old one's gotta get out of the way. And I think my board's smart enough to know that they're not going to replace me. They're not going to find somebody just like me.
Right.
And nor should they want to, because there are people that have much more sophisticated skill sets than I do around what the current business environment is, I think.
Yeah, so good. You're seeing it as an opportunity to take the business sort of into the next level.
Well, exactly. I mean, the saddest thing for me would be to leave and then have the organization flounder after that.
Yeah, that would be a disaster. So what's kind of the latest thing that's working in your business? How do you, you know, what is the latest breakthrough you've had?
Well, you know, I think for me, what I'm most proud of in the organization is that we are a learning organization through and through. So we invest a lot in outcomes measurement, finding out what works for our clients. We've done a great job over 26 years, not only our organization, but the kind of whole field of business development, in bringing women to the table. So we've, you know, women are starting businesses now about 5 times the national rate. So that's great. But in terms of growth and access to capital, women still aren't there. Last year, women got 2% of venture capital. It actually, you know,
I'm sorry, can you just back up? Did you just say that women are starting businesses at 5 times the national rate?
Yeah.
5 times more businesses today are started by women in this country?
It's a little complicated. More businesses are still being started by men than women, but if you look at the percentage of businesses that are owned by women, and then the multiplying rate of that is, yes, they're starting.
I see. If you,
it's a little challenging to explain that.
5 times more than in the past. It's like accelerating more rapidly.
Yeah, I had somebody explain the difference to me because I've seen it described in different ways. So
got it.
It's a little challenge, but yeah. So women own 38% of all of the businesses now, privately held firms.
Yeah.
But they're still smaller, and a lot of it's because of the lack of access to capital. So men are 2.5 times more likely to be approved for a business loan than women are. Less than 2% of all the venture capital went to women last year. When women do get venture capital, they get about half as much as men do. Wow. And there's been a lot of research out of Babson College around women in business, and they estimate that if women started up businesses with the same amount of money as men did, they'd create 600,000 jobs in 5 years. So this, this investment in women-owned businesses is just still severely lacking.
Yeah. So that just leads into my next question sort of beautifully, but if you think back, you're kind of like wrapping up this career phase of your business over the next few years. What would you like your legacy to be?
I'd like to see much more kind of creative investment, not only in women-owned businesses, but minority-owned businesses. I mean, there's a lot of research out there that says vast majority of the venture and angel capital goes to, people in Silicon Valley and New York. It goes to about like 3 cities, and overwhelmingly it still goes to white men. Yeah. And so there's a lot of creativity that's not only left on the table, they're not even getting in, to make their pitches. Yeah. And even saying that, I know, we're in a tech field, and tech is more likely to be a scalable kind of business, but the vast majority of businesses being started are not tech businesses. Right. They're service businesses. Yeah. They're the brick and mortar, mom and pop, Main Street businesses that are employing, 5 to 50 employees. Yeah. But those kinds of businesses don't have access to creative kinds of capital. Usually all they have is access to loan capital. And sometimes, especially at an early stage, you can't service a loan. So I'd love to see more creative kinds of like equity crowdfunding and, maybe equity funding through kind of direct small group investment on the local level, so that I can go out and invest in that great restaurant, or that great shop that I think could,
impact my community and even my own life, right?
Exactly, and I can go there and I can bring my friends there and spend my money there.
Yeah, very interesting. So in terms of legacy, is that your next project?
I think once I think within Weave, besides the transition planning, that is the thing, the one, I think, big thing that I'd like to see happen is some kind of an impact investing tool for women-owned businesses. One of the things that we see so often is that women-owned businesses often are very focused on the triple bottom line. And we need more businesses like that. And I think by having financing mechanisms that encourage those kinds of businesses, then we can create more of those kinds of businesses. So, businesses that really care about paying a living wage, making sure that their employees can afford to live here, looking at their impact on, the environment, and not just profit as the bottom line. Yeah.
So as somebody who's seen a good 3 decades now of the business entrepreneurial world from the inside and from the out as a business coach and trainer, what do you think it means? We've called this thing Modern Entrepreneur. And we're trying to get at, what the unique sort of opportunities and also responsibilities of, for entrepreneurs are today in this kind of modern environment. What do you think those are?
I'm very encouraged by the fact that, when you survey the millennial generation, they show much more concern for the quality of the workplace, for doing social good, for having balanced lives. I've never been one to believe that, to be successful, you have to sell your soul and your heart and only work in your business. I think that taking time away from your business or your job gives your brain time to refresh. And if you don't do that, I think it's very easy to become burned out. One of the things I've noticed lately is, there's been a lot of talk about, the gig economy, where people who are driving for a Lyft or, patching together income from 3 things. Well, when we started, that's what we called self-employment.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a new old problem with a new name. The real challenge is, how does somebody who juggles 3 sources of income create the safety net they need? Where do they get affordable insurance? Are they able to save? Do they get the benefits that traditional employment might offer them? And I think one of the biggest challenges is, even though the millennial generation is, research has shown that in terms of their kind of their thought processes, they are by far the most entrepreneurial thinkers. But the rate of entrepreneurial activity among millennials is actually less than the prior 2 generations. So if you look at millennials, less than 4% of millennials are engaged in an entrepreneurial venture at age 30, whereas Gen Xers, it was 5.5%, and baby boomers, it was 6.7%. And, I think one of the, and it's not proven, but one of the ideas about why that is because of the huge amount of debt that millennials are coming out of school with. So if you're coming out of school with a $50,000 debt, you're either going to want to go get a job where you can service that debt, or if you start a business, you're, number 1, unlikely, or number 2, unable to take on any debt to build that business. The actual rate of business startups is the lowest it's been in 35 years, despite all of this incredible hype around entrepreneurism. And I think from a public policy level, we need to be looking at what more can we do to spur entrepreneurial growth among young people. And I think there are policy solutions in some cases.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
You're
it's
very
really
welcome.
a pleasure to meet you
Pleasure
and
to
take
be
the
here.
time. Would you sign our wall for us?
Oh, you bet.